the Gettle family invented residential air cooling. They invented the air conditioner. So
Wow.
I own the company that invented the air conditioner. And I'm an air conditioning guy, so it just felt right.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Dawson. Welcome back to another episode of the B. Dawson Show. I happen to have a good buddy of mine, Ken Goodrich, here joining us. We're going to be talking about what it's like to buy not one business, not two businesses, maybe dozens of businesses, what it's like to grow a business from scratch to millions, not millions, maybe hundreds of millions on the B. Dawson Show on this episode. Ken, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Ken, how many businesses in your career have you bought and sold?
Well, I bought a lot more than I sold. So I don't know, I think I probably put together 120 or so businesses over the years. I buy them and combine them and move them around and such.
So what was your first deal? Like, how big was your first deal?
All right, so my very first deal was, I'm in the air conditioning business, and one of my competitors died, passed away early, unfortunately. And so he died, and so I called his family and said, hey, I'd like to buy the remains of the business. And they said, we've moved on. That was his thing. We don't have anything to do with it. So I decided I'm going to go to the phone company, see if I get the phone number, because at least the phone calls come in. This is before the internet, right? So I go to the phone company and I say, I'd like to have this number. And they said, well, this is a business number, and we have to give the old owner a year to get the bill current and give him a chance to turn it back on. We just can't give it to you for a year. I said, well, I assure you he's not coming back. He's passed away. And they said, well, if you can prove that he's passed away, we'll give you the number. Now I'm a kid, I'm maybe 25. I'm like, how do I prove somebody died? And I'm thinking all kinds of things. Polaroid camera on the tombstone, a note from his wife. I don't know what to do. And then it occurred to me, I'll get the death certificate. So I go down to the health department, $7, get the death certificate, go back to the phone company. I proudly display it to the supervisor, and she gets frustrated with me. She didn't want to do it. She said, okay. And she keyed it in, and I paid $17 to turn it on. That was my first acquisition, $17. I walked into the office. I drove right back to the office, walked in the door. The phone was ringing. My receptionist was not there. I pick it up, and it's a customer from that company who says, is your $7,000 bid still good? And I said, yes, ma'am, it is. When would you like us to start?
This is so business owners. I talk to business owners or people looking at starting businesses, and they always ask me, because Grant did the Undercover Billionaire show, and I always joke around saying they should drop me in the next town, because I know what I'm going to do, which I'm going to go through the obituaries. I'm going to go to local banks. I'm going to go ask, do you know anybody who's died, is dying, who had a business, and his family doesn't know what to do with it? And that's the first place I'm going to look for it, because I've come across tens of thousands of those businesses in my career, and that's how I started in the hearing care space. I took businesses of people, family members that the spouse died, we don't know what to do with it, and so we'll just give it to you, and then on a note where I'd pay them over time, and so there's lots of ways to build businesses.
Yeah.
But it's the ingenuity. I love the fact that and the perseverance. What that just described was the perseverance.
Oh yeah, listen. I at one time, we don't do this so much anymore because the internet has changed things. But at one time, we had 67 companies' phone numbers ringing into our call center that I had accumulated. They went out of business. They sold me the number. We bought the company. Whatever. 67 different companies. And you'd be surprised how much revenue you can get off of an old phone number. I'll tell you one more example. It's Thanksgiving. I'm reading the newspaper when the newspaper was there. So I read the newspaper. It talks about an air conditioning company in Las Vegas that they shut down right before Thanksgiving, and nobody could get their Thanksgiving dinner. They couldn't get paid before Thanksgiving. So The next morning at 6 a.m., I sat in front of that guy's place, that business, knowing he would probably show up to clean the office or something, and there he shows up. And I put $5,000 in one pocket, and I put $10,000 in another pocket. And I go and I start talking and said, I'd like to buy your phone number and all of those customer files. And he said, how much are you going to give me? I said, I'll give you $5,000. He said, deal. So I took the $5,000 out of my pocket, I gave it to him, I transferred the phone number over. The phone number and the records did over $1 million in revenue for 7 straight years. You know, it's that you just gotta get out there and work it and be a little cagey and creative.
That your story and my story is very similar. That's why I love talking to entrepreneurs who've done big things. And so now fast forward, I mean, you built a massive business in the last 7 or 8 years. Like you figured out the mechanics, you figured out the process, you knew what you were doing with the what. I always talk about the what. You know, you usually if you're good at the business, within the first $3 million, you figure the what out.
Right.
Then it's the who and the how after that. And once you start getting that success and that momentum, and what I'd want to say to the listeners and the watchers of this is that I wanted Ken to come on here because he's such a successful entrepreneur, such a successful business owner. But one of the things I want to be clear is I want him to describe exactly what his business was, this latest business that you were involved in, just so people know what you do for a living.
Okay, so I have been in the air conditioning business my entire life. My dad was a air conditioning repairman first and started his own company, and I became enlisted as the official flashlight holder for him at 10 years old. And at 10 years old, the first time I ever turned on a flashlight and lit up an air conditioner, I lit up an air conditioner called a Gettle, G-O-E-T-T-L, a Gettle air conditioner. And the first time I ever saw an air conditioner, my dad said, the Gettle is the finest air conditioner, it's the Rolls Royce of air conditioners. I said, okay, and that was my truth. And so my dad became a Gettle dealer, and I worked side by side with him, installing, repairing, and servicing Gettle air conditioners. As time went on, about when I was 25 years old, he unfortunately passed away very untimely. And I bought the family business from my mom, and I started out in business. And I struggled and fought and figured it out, but I was always associated with Gettle as my dad was, and I became a Gettle dealer, and they gave me a lot of support to help me through the learning curve running a business, right? Well, as time goes on, I get pretty good at it, and I start buying and selling these companies and trading them, and then consolidation happens, and the first consolidation, I sold 3 businesses to the consolidators. The second one I sold 7. The third one I sold 9. And I just kind of became a business builder. Now, in 2013, Gettle came available, and I kind of just felt like it was my destiny. Right?
You know, what's that feel like? Like when you think about a brand that you're so associated with, and feel like you're part of it, even though they're separate from you, and then all of a sudden, you could be the owner of that brand. I
was year to year, it was beaming, because it just never occurs to you that you could own an iconic brand. Could you own Rolex? Probably. You could probably own anything you want nowadays, but I was so proud to have that brand because it meant so much to me, and it was really known for quality. And the Gettle family invented residential air cooling. They invented the air conditioner. So wow. I own the company that invented the air conditioner. And I'm an air conditioning guy, so it just felt right. So then, I was able to grab it in 2013, and it was way out of favor. It had some challenges. It was bleeding $250,000 a month.
Wow.
$3 million a year. It had fallen on some hard times. Year before I bought it, or a couple years before I bought it, did $34 million in revenue. The year before I bought it, did 11.
Wow.
And so I was able to grab it and start working on it and using some of the skills I've used over the years to build these companies and repair them and get them on the right track, and we took off. And we took that business from 11 million in sales to last year we finished just over 160 million.
$160 million from 2013 to 2021.
Right.
You know, Jim Collins talks a lot in Good to Great, Great by Choice, and how the mighty fall. And one of the things I spend a lot of time with business owners, a lot of them get excited when they hit the 10 million or the 20 million or the 30 million. But yours, in my experience, is those businesses can collapse just as fast as they're growing. If, you know, the sad part is that Gettle had in their hands the resources to be a $150 or $250 million business because you did it with the brand. What they didn't have was a you. And I talk all the time that once the what works between the first 100,000 and $3 million, once that works, building a massive business, a successful business, is about who you do it with and how you do it. But the what has to work. And what frustrates me is I see so many business owners that the what works really super well, but the who screws it up, and the how never gets documented. There's no processes, there's no systems, and I know you see this because many of those businesses you acquired that were 5 million, 10 million, 20 million in your acquisition run, you'd walk in and you would immediately spot this. I know you would, and you'd be looking for it, but the owner wouldn't know that's what you're looking for.
Right.
And talk about a little bit about your intuition after a period of time of being able to walk into a business where you can almost intuitively know if they were going to run into trouble or how fast you could fix them.
Well, let me tell you how I gained that intuition, and I wouldn't recommend everybody else do this because it was very challenging. But I'm going to tell you the story. So I got into business, or you know, my dad passes away. I buy the business from my mom, which was a van and me. That was the business. Yeah. She answered the phone, did some books, and I did the work. Right, that was the business. But as I continued to grow it, I started hiring people because, you know, a business has to have people, right? So I keep hiring people, keep buying some trucks, you know, buying some advertising. I get the big full page ad and yellow pages back then. You know, I'm a businessman. I have no financial controls. I have no financials. I have no idea what we're doing. Just let's go sell some shit, right?
Yep.
And so we went at it. And we get to the point where, you know, by that time I got my 635 BMW, my nice clothes, my loafers, and I'm going to work as an executive. Show up at 10, right? That's what you do.
Yep.
Right? And all my people are floundering around with no direction. And a guy shows up, says, I'm from the Internal Revenue Service, gives me his business card, and says, you owe us $74,000. And that was in mid-'80s.
It was a rude wake-up call?
And I said, for what? And he said, well, for your payroll taxes. I said, what's payroll taxes? And so he quickly showed me what payroll taxes were. And then, you know, guns and badges and seizures and all that stuff later, and I fight through it, and I get a chance to put the business back, but I had to learn how to pull the business out. I had to learn how a business works, and in that time, I got a hold of a book that I know that you know of, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and I started.
Great book, by the way. It's like 40 years still strong. One of the best business books ever written.
And so I carried that book with me in my back pocket for 3 years, and I read that book and I looked at it, and every time I had some frustration, I'd find something in the book that kind of gave me some direction, and I'd go at it. Well, I pulled the business out. I mean, I literally got to the point where I had $3,000 cash, 2 guys. The only 2 guys would work for me, one of them being a little person, doing air conditioning, and me and $3,000, and I had to go out, sell the jobs, take the cash because no one would take my check because I was garnished, pay for the air conditioner. They'd go put it in, I'd go sell. I mean, this was every day until I gutted it out and got free from the IRS. But in the process, I learned what business was, right? Lead generation, lead conversion, client fulfillment, the 3 basic steps. And then I started documenting and using the Gerber system and getting up to speed, and I pulled myself out and created a meaningful brand in Las Vegas. Well, because I had had that experience, and I pulled myself through it, I became a turnaround expert because I turned around my own. And so then I was on the hunt for broken businesses.
So a lot of people, so you and I are, I love listening to successful entrepreneurs because I got started the same way, simply because I didn't have any money either. So it's kind of like a necessity if you want to own a business. And
which, by the way, we can talk about this later, but I wouldn't recommend that.
No, but that's the point, is like that's the slow way.
I know. We get caught in that trap.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't know anything different until you know it. And the thing is I've spent the last 20 years working with independent business owners, helping them find how to grow, scale, create massive value, and exit their business. And it is unbelievable how many of them don't know how much opportunity. Like Sharon Lecter, the 3 Feet from Gold book. I think about that because it's like, you 3 feet from gold, and then you stop digging, and you were that close, and then a guy like you or I come along, we're like, it's right there, and we're just going to finish the dig, and now we've got $1 million, $100 million business. And I think if business owners knew what we knew, but then we always say we wish we knew what we knew 20 years ago. It's like, it's just the cycle of life. And the thing is I agree with you. The slow way, the working harder, not smarter, getting the wrong advice from the wrong people. The one thing I see as the biggest distractor for most business owners is they don't know how to ask the right questions of the people they're seeking guidance and advice from, and they get derailed because the people they're getting guidance and advice from don't know, but they want to be experts on something, like consultants, advisors, lawyers, accountants. And so they send them off in the wrong path. So now all of a sudden, fast forward to 2021,
lawyers are terrible business people.
Horrible. And most accountants, most lawyers, most consultants, like I always ask somebody, did you ask the consultant how many people work with the consultant? Because if you want to build a business that's interdependent on 1,000 people and the consultant works by themselves, they're the wrong person to be talking to about it.
Right.
So fast forward, here we are. All of a sudden, you become an icon in the HVAC space with all your success, having an iconic brand. And now obviously, 10X is our brand. Uh-huh. That's the Grant Cardone brand. And we talk about 10Xing businesses. Going from a few million over 7 or 8 years, and all of a sudden creating an iconic legacy brand that's dominating a marketplace worth hundreds of millions of dollars, like truly 10Xing 7 years of a whole life's worth of work in 7 years. What's it feel like to have that kind of accomplishment?
Well, it's an incredible feeling, incredible accomplishment. I have a great team that I've developed over the years, and we can talk about this later, but they're all participants in the upside, so it feels good to give people opportunity and see them flourish and grow and be in places they never dreamed they could be. So all that felt great. But the double-edged sword of the entrepreneur, the other side of it is, now I'm pissed off. Like, why did I waste all that other time with all that stupid shit that I did all those other years?
Yeah.
And now I know. And so it kind of gets me focused, like, okay, what's next? It kind of gets me keyed into the accomplishment next. Look, I think my experience is the true entrepreneur is the one who make the greatest gains. It's not about the money. Now, I am not going to live. I'm going to live in a standard that's commensurate.
Yeah, but the money
It's
still though is if we're on the football field, it's about the yards and about the end zone.
It is, but what I'm saying is, for me, it's the accomplishment, it's the building of things, this and that. But to build something of significance, it has to have significant value. Yeah. And in business terms, it has to have significant EBITDA or profit. So it's building it right at the same time. It's not for the sake of building something. It's building something that is a cash flow machine. So I was trained by a very hard taskmaster, my dad.
Yep.
Old school, hard taskmaster. That's how I was trained. That's how he thought you did it. So I would get people that weren't used to the environment that worked for me, and I'd start playing his game, and it was turnover central. I I just couldn't keep anybody on the team. Then I decided, I got to get a guy between me and the field. I'll focus on the business process, right? I'll do what you do. So I got a general manager who had some skills, had management skills and people. And that's when I realized, management is a skill, like fixing an air conditioner, like being a plumber, like anything else, right? So I knew I had to get that education. But he had those skills, and he took that pressure off me. And I'm telling you guys, a general manager is not the answer in and of itself. It's a position in the company that you need, but you still have to hold them accountable. You can't abdicate. You can't just put him in there and say, he's going to make me a lot of money and I'm going to sit back on my yacht, right?
Yep.
You got to put that guy in place. So one, I put the general manager in place to get me from the field. That gave me time to build the systems and get the education that I needed on how to manage people and what that really meant. Managing people is not just it's not telling them what to do, right? And then as I evolved, I started taking classes on leadership, reading the books, all that stuff. Had I had it to do all over again, I would take the key building blocks of the business. I would decide what resources I need in each of those building blocks and what is my part as the leader, and get me the tools or the education I need for that before I start.
Yeah.
That's ideal.
Oh, you and I both. I broke my first business and had to start over, and I blamed a lot of things and a lot of people and a lot of circumstances, but the fact is my leadership skills were so horrible. And when I cracked open 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, and I went through those 21 laws, I graded myself on every one of those laws, and I graded myself like a 2 or 3 out of 10, and I recognized this is the problem.
You have to touch the heart before you ask for a hand.
100%. So if anybody watching this wants to know how to create hundreds of millions of dollars of value in your business, and do it pretty quick, what I would say to you is it's a people first initiative. You can have the what could work, but if you don't surround yourself with the right people, you don't understand how to align them with the success, you don't treat them the right way, and you don't attract the right people into your business and your organization by offering them something that's a win for them, it's going to be building the business the hard way. And both of us had to learn that in our first, second, third, fourth businesses.
Yeah, and let me tell you about that, my experience there. So do not get fooled with titles. So I see in my business. So in my business, it's kind of the typical HVAC shop is small, a little unsophisticated, not very well systemized. However, people evolve in key roles in those businesses, like they become general managers, right?
Yep.
And I see my people sometimes falling for this, and I fell for it myself. Oh, Reggie was a general manager over here at this nice big company, so he has to have all the skills necessary to come and save my life, save my business.
Yeah.
So we recruit Reggie, comes over, and Reggie's a bust because he wasn't a good general manager over there. He didn't know the skills there, and he brought nothing to the table here. So what I learned is, management's a skill, and then from the people side of it, what I look for is very smart, very driven people that need just a little direction, just to get them into a groove, and we'll teach them what they need to learn. And who just want to win and pull for the brand. And as they get to a certain level, I'll give them some incentives, some phantom equity, so that they too can earn along with it and make something out of their time and effort at the business. Keep them in. And that's been my formula. In terms of the people that I have in my key team in our business now, which is over 1,000 employees now.
Wow.
I have personally handpicked and hired every key manager inside that business, and and that's how important it is that they have that thing, just that grit, that winning attitude, that competitive spirit. little cagey, you know.
And they also know what your expectation is because they had to go through it with you. So then they replicate that through the organization.
Yeah.
So, in 2009, I hired a research firm. We were looking at different industries that we believed we could create the perspective of what's the future opportunity to create massive value. And we did a project from 2009 to 2011 or 12. And then we refreshed that with IGS, a Boston consulting firm, in 2016 and 17. In 2019 and 11, an emerging industry that was going to converge with technology that had a very much... say a blue collar that was matching sophistication with technology. That was one of the things that we were looking at, and the one thing that kept popping up was HVAC. And now you fast forward, our prediction on that was right. It's like it was an emerging market with traditional business, with new emerging technology that creates massive value. And what I loved about it back then, based on the Force rankings, is you had a service component, you had a new component, you had an industrial component, you had a commercial and residential component. You had all these different components that you could go after to get different clients and customers. And the technology had its own internal innovation that was going on based on everything that was happening in the world with green credits and all these other things. So now here you are. You've been in the space your whole life. I'm finally, you and I have talked off and on, and now here we are. I have made a hard decision that we're with Grant Cardone, that we are going to take a hard look at this space, help as many business owners. We've been managing over 100 million of businesses in this space now for the last year and a half. And what I would ask you is, what's your perspective on this space, and what is the runway for massive value creation based on all the history that you know about this industry?
I don't know of a better place to be. I started from a service truck repairing air conditioners to just had hundreds of millions of dollar exit on my latest deal. And so the opportunity is just endless in what we do. And for those guys, especially now, you got to think about this. Most guys who have some interesting market share in major markets are my age or older. I may be the younger end of it,
yeah.
Right? And so for these younger guys who have a lot of energy and have some new knowledge that some of the older guys don't have, web knowledge, different marketing things, or different ways to look at the business. What a great opportunity to mow and pull this industry together and take it to the next level. Innovate inside of it, retool the model. I mean, we really work hard to do things the opposite the industry does, because it just doesn't make any sense to me the way that typically gets done. But the majority of businesses operate very similar. And a disruptor that comes in and say, why do we do it like that? How can we increase the speed of service? How can we make it easier for the customer? How can we take some of the dark side out of this sales process, for instance? Those guys can become billionaires. Lots of billionaires can be made in the HVAC space in the near term.
I 100% agree with you, and it's my mission to help as many people that want to create that for themselves, to help them do it and accelerate it. I just so appreciate you taking time to come talk to me, tell your story to the people that watch and listen to the B. Dawson Show. You're an iconic entrepreneur who's done it. And over and over and over, and then did it massively. I know you're not done yet. I know you've got huge things, because you and I think a lot alike about business and the knowledge that we have today, being able to apply it to things that are happening in real time, and the pattern recognition ability to see what that opportunity is. The fact that you've been able to be so successful, congratulations, because I from one entrepreneur to another. I have one question for you. Over your total career, what was the one moment that you can go to that you were the most afraid of failure?
I've had lots of them. I think the story I told you in the beginning about the IRS, I mean, I'm 25 years old, right?
Yeah.
I got no support, no help. That was probably the most difficult time of my career. And what I fell back on though is just plain old going to work.
So
show up every day and
so
just
this
hit
is
it.
why I asked you that question, because
That moment in time when you conquered that, because today you and I would say a $75,000 problem today is nothing for you and I.
right.
But because you overcame that, how many times did you reflect on that when you ran into the next obstacle and went, I beat that, so I'm going to beat this?
Well, let me say this, and great question. The 75 turned into 250 very quick with penalties and interest, so it was
It was a big
250,
number.
right? But, one of my best friends, he's the guy that gave me the E-Myth book, and I'll give him a shout. His name's Cash Wilson. Great name, Cash Wilson. But anyway, he's the one who gave me the book, and as soon as the IRS came in, it was sitting on my desk, and I literally stayed all night reading. I never left the office because I got so compelled, like, this is my answer. So when I finally get through this challenge and I get the business built back, and so I went from that place, that happened in 1989. I sold the business for $6 million in 1997.
Wow.
Right? And so the one, we were having a conversation and with some other people, and he said, the one thing that you never want to do is test that man's will, right?
Yeah.
Because I just got
The
through
resilience.
that, right? Yeah.
And so then when you run against,
So after that, I guess what I'm saying, after that, like, try me. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I just went through? Try me. I am like a tank now, because I really feel like the adversity that I had was what gave me my armor to do everything else I've accomplished. And I'm not saying go run out and get yourself into some hot water and get out of it, but that's sure, it's training, right?
Yep.
It trained me to be able to deal with whatever came my way.
And I think the reason I bring that up for all the listeners that watch the show and listen is both Ken and I have had those moments in our life where I can clearly remember probably 3 to 4 catalysts that made me who I am today. But most importantly, it gave me the courage to have the resilience when I would run up against tough times. And the thing I recognized is what differentiated me from other entrepreneurs is when it got too rough, they quit. For me, I was like, this is my breakthrough. And I think mindset with these things is critically important. And once you find that and you do it and you conquer it, that fortification that you just talked about, that is part of being a strong, successful entrepreneur. So for those of you that are struggling right now, the encouragement is that is part of the process to get big. You have to know what that feels like in order to have the resilience to break through. But when you give up, that's when you give up.
Right.
And you probably won't go back at it after it. So, Ken, thank you for being on the show. What a great opportunity to
Thanks
have
for
you
having
here.
me. I
appreciate it.
And for those of you listening or watching the B. Dawson Show, thank you. You know, it is my number one objective to bring you value, to help you build, grow, scale, and eventually exit your business for the highest value possible. So thank you, everybody, for watching the B. Dawson Show.